Welcome to Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater. Issues and Answers is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. And now, Issues and Answers with your host, Diane Kinderwater.
Welcome to the program. I'm Diane Kinderwater. We can still say happy 2026 to you and your family. Is it going to be happy? Are we going to get above the rankings that we have here in New Mexico? On the show today with the Rio Grande Foundation, we're going to talk about, you've heard this before, New Mexico's dead last ranking in economic freedom. Paul Gessing is going to be joining us today talking about what is economic freedom and why should we care about it? Why should we care that we're last? Do we care? I'm not sure if New Mexicans care, but I know I care. I think KCHF TV cares, and the Rio Grande Foundation cares about that. We're also going to talk about the boom in data centers. AI, of course. You've heard about AI, artificial intelligence. Well, here in Issues and Answers, we're talking about data center boom. We've got them in Santa Teresa, Roswell, and Lee County. Is that good news or bad news? We got the Rio Grande's opinion on that too, so stay with us. It's going to be a very lively conversation with Paul Gessing. We'll see you in a second. We know we love our weather here in New Mexico. I mean, geez, look at this. Whatever month it is, it's just glorious with the sun, and we're so fortunate. And that's why, one of the reasons we love the culture, we love the food, we love our weather. But a lot of us don't like our rankings. We don't like being dead last. And the fact is that the nation knows we're dead last, and when you get that ranking of dead last, people don't like to kind of maybe come here. The people who we want to come here don't want to come here. The people who want to maybe take come here, but those who want to produce perhaps don't, because we are dead last in economic freedom. Right. Paul Gessing from the Rio Grande Foundation, thank you for joining us. What is that? What is economic freedom, and why do I care about it?
Yeah, so two things. One, the definition of economic freedom. It means that you get to keep your own money without the government taxing it all away. Now, they tax some of it away. We know death and taxes, right? They're inevitable. So how much you tax away is the critical factor. The other thing is, how much can you do economically speaking with relative freedom? How many regulations are standing in your way? And that is the big two facets of economic freedom. Now in New Mexico, we add a little bit of a wrinkle because in most places, you can only tax as much, or you spend as much as you tax. So taxes and spending in most states are very closely related. In New Mexico, we have this thing, again, oil and gas, and that drives a wedge that makes the difference between how many taxes we pay and what services we get, how big government is, and you can argue whether it's good services or not, but how big government is driven not just by the taxes we pay, but how much money is flowing into the coffers from oil and gas.
But they're paying, aren't those taxes as well?
They are. Now, in the report that we are talking about here, it's put together by a Canadian think tank called the Fraser Institute, F-R-A-S-E-R. They look at economic freedom throughout the world, and in this report throughout North America. They do their own provincial rankings of economic freedom. They do Mexican states and their economic freedom. But since 1981, they've done a separate report looking at US states and their relative standing on economic freedom. And for the first time in a very long time, believe it or not, we've always been towards the bottom, or at least in recent years. But this report goes back to 1981. New Mexico was not always dead last or even close to dead last in economic freedom. But we are now. The 2025 edition, the most recent edition, which just came out in the holiday period of 2025, puts New Mexico below typical laggards, Hawaii, New York, and California. So we're all the way at the bottom, unfortunately, in economic freedom.
And that's because we tax too much. People don't keep their money, and
government spends too much, and they regulate us too much.
Right.
The most free state, by the way, is New Hampshire, a state that has no income tax, no sales tax, and does it all with no oil and gas. So they run a tight ship in New Hampshire, whereas New Mexico runs a very inefficient government.
But we're both new, New Mexico and New Hampshire. Come on.
There you go. That's about the only thing we have in common.
The first word of our names. So is business thriving in New Hampshire, Paul Gessing?
New Hampshire is a great place to do business. You mentioned the weather at the outset, though. Americans as a whole have for decades been moving south and to the west. That's not favorable to New Hampshire, where it's very cold and they don't have a lot of options economically. They have very rocky soil, and it's just a relatively inhospitable place to go.
So maybe they need to offer the freedoms.
They do, but other states that have a lot more similarity to New Mexico. We can argue about Texas, but we know that Texas is a state that's been booming, it's been growing very fast. I'll take New Mexico beauty and weather over Texas any day of the week and twice on Sunday. But Texas has no personal income tax, has overall lower taxes, and that's why they blow us out of the water economically speaking and economically freedom speaking. Florida is another state just like that. Whether you like the humidity or the constant warm temperatures in Florida, the fact is that those low taxes, those low government regulations, one of the top freedom states in the country, people have been moving to Florida as well. And you just look at our neighbors, Arizona, Utah, Colorado, Texas, Oklahoma. They always are kicking our butts economically speaking. And this is not just oh, well, we want jobs and economic growth, or we don't want jobs and economic growth. This is things like equality for people of different income levels, because you actually raise the bottom levels of society up, economically speaking, more by having more economic freedom. You have gender equality as well. You have environmental goals and attainment that can be increased and improved through greater economic freedom. Rich countries, wealthy places have the disposable income and have the money to care more about these other factors. And New Mexico, we're still part of the United States, so we're still not a complete disaster area when it comes to economic freedom. We're still more free than all the Mexican states and almost all the Canadian states. That just gives you a pretty good indicator of how economic freedom is really to be found here in the United States and some other countries not nearly the size and scope of the United States.
So you've examined that, you've looked at this report from Canada and see that, at least New Mexico, even Canada has a lot of regulations.
Their national government has dragged them down, especially in the last decade. Alberta is one of the economic freedom bastions. It's the most economically free province in Canada. And, I know Trump was talking earlier in the year, last year, about, we should annex Canada. Well, if he did that, we would annex a lot of left-wing political types and political
and taking care
believers.
of them. Well, he thinks we're taking care of them. They don't have an army. We're taking care of them economically. And
Alberta is the one that if you had a choice where you'd go, they also have a lot of oil and gas, kind of like New Mexico. So Alberta is a province in Canada that resembles an American state more so than I think most of the others. But I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon. It's fun to think about, but it is good to compare our economic freedom against other places if we get too down in the dumps about our standing.
Good to hear that. Well, so why is Mexico so poor in economic freedom? Taxing, or because of regulation, or because they don't have anything?
Well, I think the fundamental problem facing Mexico is corruption, and followed on by a general centralization of government that is harmful. The United States, we have federalism. We need to fight and keep federalism. That means that a majority of the policies should be done at the state level, and then you get to unleash, I believe it was Oliver Wendell Holmes, a former Supreme Court justice, called the laboratories of democracy. The states should be competing and kind of battling it out economically and with these government programs and whatnot to fight to be the most competitive and successful. New Mexico is not in the most competitive group when it comes to those states. We're failing the laboratories of democracy, and that's including with our weather, with our oil and gas, with those advantages. We should be thriving. We should be the most successful state in the country, but we're not. Because of our governance and the people, we constantly elect to go to Santa Fe and to go to Congress.
But then part of us say, well, we got such great weather, we don't want to share it with others. But those of us who are here don't want the taxation or the regulations.
Right.
But if it's keeping out people from coming.
Well, and that mentality is unfortunately a real thing in New Mexico. And what I would tell them is, if you have children and grandchildren and you want, as do I have 3 girls, and if I want them to stay here in the state of New Mexico and be able to survive and thrive and have children, you know, grandchildren for me, I want this state to be thriving. And, you know, we have a family-oriented state, at least in theory, but those kids and grandkids are moving to Phoenix, they're moving to Denver, they're moving to Dallas and Houston and other states that are thriving and doing better economically than we are. And they're doing better in crime and education and all these other policy areas that we should be doing well in, but because we vote poorly, we get the policies we get.
We deserve what we get.
Exactly.
That's
another famous quote about voting. Is it's democracy is getting the people, voting for the people and getting it good and hard, getting the policies that they recommend good and hard. And that's unfortunate. We're doing it.
That's what we're doing. Is this good news or bad news, this boom in data centers? Again, AI, artificial intelligence, we can't turn it back. We have a lot of, I guess, big centers coming to Santa Teresa, Roswell, and Lee County.
Yeah.
I mean, we're talking about economic development, 750 jobs. Is that good news or bad news?
Of all of the things that we tend to talk about, Diane, this is probably the best news that we have.
And it's not that good, but...
well, it is good news, but it's complicated. So I want to go through a few of the complications before we get to the good news. Now, unfortunately, this is more of a New Mexico has a lot to offer. We are inherently very attractive to the data center companies that are putting these here because we don't, remember, our weather. We don't, and not just weather, but also humidity. Our geology. Well, not the humidity so much. We don't have hurricanes, we don't have tornadoes, we don't have floods. And I realize those all do involve humidity, but the winds and the flooding, those are much bigger factors. But these data centers, they need to be online 24/7. You can't have any downtime. So you can't have floods, you can't have hurricanes, you can't have those things.
Okay.
We don't. Also earthquakes. That's geological stability.
Okay.
We're a stable state from a geological perspective. So that's one of the big reasons why they're coming here. Now, on the negative side, go ahead.
What's a data center?
So, well, we have a data center already in existence. It's in Los Lunas, New Mexico, just south of Albuquerque. It's for Facebook. This was done under the prior governor, Susana Martinez. And all these big companies that do work online, they store all of our data. That's how they pay their bills. They have big spending ad companies come in and they want that information because it tells you a lot about people.
It's a place where they store all of our data.
They store that data in very big computers.
From our phones, from our computers, from our TVs, from our cars. It's all stored somewhere. Usually it's just a big building with
bunch
computers.
Of computers, exactly.
That's
so we have 3 of these on the docket to be constructed here. They've been approved. They're not being built yet, but soon. One of them, Santa Teresa, down near Las Cruces, down near the border. One near Roswell, and one in Lee County. I'm going to talk mostly about the Santa Teresa one because we've gotten more information about that. It's being called Project Jupiter. It is a project of Oracle, which is a major corporation, and they've been around for a long time. So we're talking about 750 jobs. That's good.
Well, that's just construction building, or when it's up and running?
Those are permanent jobs.
750
and even
people.
more under the construction phase.
I thought they just needed computers.
Well, it takes some effort to keep those facilities going.
750, okay.
Yeah, 750 jobs. This is a big deal. This is a very, very big deal. It's so big that it's going to have its own electrical source.
It's kind of like own city.
You're right. In terms of electricity, it will, because the 2.8 gigawatts of energy, electricity it's going to require is going to be fueled by a natural gas power plant off the grid on something called a microgrid that is dedicated just for that facility. That is more electricity than we use in all of Albuquerque and Las Cruces combined. Big, big, big.
And they're using natural gas, you said?
Natural gas. Now that's the first kind of fly in the ointment, so to speak, because way back in 2019, this governor got the Energy Transition Act passed. And the Energy Transition Act says by 2045, but really for these facilities 2035, they're all going to have to be wind and solar with batteries for backup. Maybe some geothermal, that's still up for discussion. But as to what is realistic, because geothermal, of course, it comes out of the ground, et cetera. Yeah, so these companies are spending billions of dollars to build these facilities. There's no way that they're going to just say, okay, we're going to run this all on wind and solar. It's not going to happen. So the first challenge is what happens with the electricity. We've already seen environmental groups and environmentalist-oriented members of the legislature pushing back and saying, we're doing the Energy Transition Act, why are we doing a natural gas plant? Now, natural gas is relatively clean. I would agree that this is a bit of a loophole in our law in the sense that in 2025 they passed a microgrid law. It's HB 93, and it allows this process by which they can set up a dedicated grid. Yeah. So will they renegotiate the Energy Transition Act? Will we change this to make these stations workable in the future? They did. That's how we're doing all this, is that law passed in 2025. So there's a conflict here as to there's no way wind and solar and geothermal and batteries and anything else is going to actually fuel this kind of thing, because they need it on 24/7 and wind and solar.
But we have the natural gas here in New Mexico.
We have the natural gas here.
Is that one reason, in addition to the geography, topography, is that we have?
I would certainly think that is part of it. I haven't talked to them about that specific aspect, but you're right. Natural gas is very plentiful in the state of New Mexico from both the Four Corners as well as the Permian Basin, southeast New Mexico. So that's one aspect of this, the conflict between the governor and her radical environmental base. I don't know.
Because they want to know. They need to know to start building.
Right, exactly. So then the other challenge, one of many, is around water. Now, water is important to cooling these data centers. It doesn't mean you're constantly pumping in new water, but we do know we are in a desert. One of the ways in which the water that we need for these facilities could be brought to bear is using produced water from the Permian Basin. Produced water, the way we got a lot of the oil and gas in New Mexico is because New Mexico was covered by an ocean millions of years ago. I'm not a geologist. I know it was a long time ago. Dinosaurs, all the stuff. And when you pump oil out of the ground, water comes with it. Now, this is ancient water. It's very dirty water. It needs to be treated, but it can be, and it can be turned into basically what's distilled water. Distilled water is water that's so clean it doesn't even have any minerals in it. You don't want to drink it because it doesn't have those positive things for it. So using that water and treating it and using it for the data centers, among other things, I mean, it is the desert. We can always use more water here, is something that is also a controversial item. Now, the governor here, she's a lame duck. She doesn't have much time left. She has, to her credit, supported these things. Now, I wish that she would support, getting back to our economic freedom conversation, I wish she would support broader economic competitiveness and freedom, because then we wouldn't be tied in. Oh, these data centers have to be it. The governor doesn't see things that way. She likes to call the shots. She likes to give certain industries and certain businesses incentives and tax giveaways and economic development money to come here, and we're doing that. I think that's unfortunate. That being said, overall, it's unfair. And the microgrid thing, I think, is unfair. That's not my issue, is that we don't get to be on a grid that has natural gas, because at some point we could be sitting around in a summer where the heat is out of control and we don't have enough electricity on our grid for the hoi polloi, the normal people, to turn our air conditioner on, but the data centers will be fine because they have their own power source. That's not fair. So there's a lot of concerns and questions. Is this better than the alternative of not doing it? Yes, in my opinion.
That's the end point is yes.
Not just a little, but significantly, because this is the best economic development opportunity that New Mexico's seen, certainly in the 8 years of this governor's term in office. She's done very little outside of welcoming the oil and gas money that has fueled our state budgets. Not a lot of tax reductions.
Well, when you say welcoming, not really welcoming, because she wanted to turn away the industry.
That's fair. She's been conflicted. She likes the money, she doesn't like the industry, and she specifically
she'll take the money, and she doesn't really welcome it because she wants to turn the industry away.
She's been instrumental through regulations in consolidating the industry. She's been able and willing to play ball with the major producers, the Exxon Mobils, the Chevrons, whereas the small independent producers, the ones who fight back, the ones who are put out of business by the regulations, she hasn't been so keen on those.
What do you think this governor's legacy is going to be, Paul Gessing, in terms of 8 years?
It's not a good one, and we're going to be very clear about that over the next several months. She's done absolutely horrible things to our education system, which already struggled, but COVID, our kids aren't going to recover from that for a very long time. We're going to be dead last in education when she leaves office, so moonshot, not a thing.
And that's what she started with. She wanted a moonshot for education.
That's the most fundamental problem. Now, in terms of this economic development issue, she has had the single greatest opportunity, I would say, that any state has had.
Because we had all this money.
Because all we had to do was use that money, some of it, not all of it, just some of it, to cut taxes, to make our state more economically competitive, and she failed to do that. Now, it falls to the next governor. They're not going to have the big $3 billion surpluses that we had for a few years, but the next governor still has those opportunities, because as much as they spend in Santa Fe, as much as they have grown government by 80% under this governor.
80%?
80% spending has gone up, general fund spending.
Are our services any better? Are our roads any better? Is our education any better? Is our security any better?
I'll leave the viewers out there to decide that one, but I think you know where I stand. We have still an opportunity to do some fantastic things if we have a governor who gets business, gets economics. So it's really, again, it's an election question. This governor, I hope she succeeds with the data centers. I wish she would focus on economic freedom as a broader subject that she was concerned about. She's clearly not. She clearly doesn't understand it, nor does the majority in the legislature. But there's still a real opportunity here to...
Because of the oil and gas industry, because of all this money it brings into our state.
And the AI boom that she has not created, but could help this state create some real jobs and some real development that could be, you could argue that that would be her legacy if she gets this done.
But again, they're choosing us mainly because we don't have the hurricanes, the earthquakes, the tornadoes.
That's
it's not because of our economic
And I'm sure that this microgrid law had something to do with it, because in other states, they're putting these facilities out on the grid, and so they're driving up electricity costs. Now, it's a combination. A lot of those states have done what we've done with the green energy. For a long time, United States as a whole was not generating or was not requiring more electricity. Electricity demand was kind of stagnant. Part of it was the efficiency, and all of that was happening, and we just weren't in a stage where we were requiring a lot more electricity. So a lot of states, not just New Mexico, embraced these carbon-free initiatives, wind and solar. Well, now we have an industry coming out online, the AI boom, and it can have a real positive impact economically. But if you don't have the electricity, you're either going to stick it to the ratepayers, or you're going to do something like our microgrid law. And our microgrid law is better than the alternative.
Well, the microgrid law, they're paying for it themselves. They're going to pay for their electricity, but they're putting up their own plant. And,
it's very expensive. And that's one of the things that, they're going to need assurances. And there must be assurances. That's the thing. We don't know what those assurances look like, but somebody is out there telling them. Even Deb Haaland, who potentially could be governor in not too distant future, will not come in and take your ability to do business away or take this energy away from you. Because you can't put a multi-billion-dollar investment into the ground in New Mexico and then have the next governor come in and say, no, 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 I don't want to do that. So these are all very critical questions, and we don't know how it's all going to end up.
Will we know in 2026? Will we know this year?
I think we'll have a pretty good idea after the election, and then looking towards the next, of course, the next full 60-day session, we're going to know a lot more. But if these facilities do start, turning dirt, if they start construction, that's when they're feeling confident that they're not going to have the rug pulled out from under them by not just this current governor and this legislature, but future governors and future legislatures.
They've got to have that down. I'm sure they have the best attorneys to
and lobbyists
and lobbyists do that. Paul Gessing, thank you. Thanks for the Rio Grande Foundation, all you do. I know you're on the radio quite a bit often. We appreciate you being a guest here on Issues and Answers.
Thank you.
And bringing another point of view and some hope, and really spelling it out how it is, how you see it, how the Rio Grande Foundation sees freedom and personal responsibility and freedom. I mean, that's...
Yeah, we should go that route. I would love to go the economic freedom route, and then we could just have businesses come here and not be beholden to the governor or future politicians as much. They might still come here, but we would have a more diversified and economically dynamic economy. That's not the path that we've chosen, unfortunately.
And have a better future for our children and grandchildren is what we want them to be here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much for you taking your time to spend it with us. And thank you for watching Issues and Answers. I'm Diane Kinderwater. Make it a great week with your family. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Issues and Answers with your host Diane Kinderwater is presented as a public service to inform, educate, and better the lives of New Mexicans. To comment on today's program, email us at info@kchftv.org or call us at 505-345-1991. Join us again for Issues and Answers with Diane Kinderwater.